Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Young Children about Social Change. This is Deepa Iyer. And if you've been watching any of these episodes so far, you know that the reason that I started this series is because as a mother, as an educator, and as a writer, I reflect a lot about the importance of being in conversation with children, with young people, about issues in our society and how to address them. And particularly now, and I think I say this in every introduction, how can we best prepare children and young people for the unprecedented and overlapping crises in our society today? What tools, what language, what books do they need? And how can we source and share them to not just the children in our lives, but to children around the world? I've been talking with authors and educators about these questions over the course of the year. So please check out the other episodes that are on this YouTube channel. Today, though, I am really excited because this is a very special episode. I'm in conversation with Romina Galotta, a children's book illustrator, who is not just the illustrator for a lot of different books. She'll talk to us about that, but I'm excited because she is actually the illustrator for my forthcoming children's book, We Are the Builders, which comes out in September 2024, published by Simon & Schuster. So we're going to be in conversation about Romina's work, about We Are the Builders. We're going to have a cover reveal during this episode, so very exciting, and hope that you'll enjoy it. So I'm going to now ask Romina to come on video, and we will get started in our conversation. Welcome, Romina.
Hi.
Hi. And I should also tell everyone, this is the first time you and I are actually meeting. We've shared a lot of emails and documents and with each other, but this is the first time that we're meeting face to face. So it's so good to see you and meet you.
Yeah. It's strange, right?
It is, it is. I feel like I know you, and also I'm getting to know you both at once.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's start with you, Romina. Can you tell us a little bit about why you became interested in illustrating children's books?
Um, I think it's a very long story, but to make it short, I realized I studied graphic design, but never really clicked with the career. And then I realized that what I wanted was to tell stories or help tell stories with my drawings and paintings. And I thought that children's books were like the perfect medium to do that. Maybe because I have a love for them since I was a child. And I don't know, there's something whimsical about them that it's like carefree. It's a creation that is carefree and sort of I don't know, good. It's not like other art is bad, but sometimes doing art for gallerias or stuff like that, it can be a little bit more elevated, and I don't know. This is like very precious and simple in a way, although it's really, really complicated. But for me, it was like the perfect path to guide my art too.
Yeah. And you have been, I mean, your illustrations, I think, they are whimsical, but they're also really relatable. And that's what drew me to your work in the past. So can you talk a little bit before we get to talking about We Are the Builders? Can you talk about some of the books you've written and illustrated before, maybe one or two that that you feel really drew, you to those texts and those scripts?
Oh, I think the first one I did is really the one that I keep really close because it was the first project. It was my first connection with a publisher. It's called Dear Librarian, and by Lydia Sigworth, and published by Macmillan. And it was really sweet because it was her story about her family and how she found in the library a home. And the script is beautiful, and I'm still really happy with what I produced for that book. and the journey it had, and how it's still very treasured and talked about, and I still love it. And another one that I like a lot is Harriet's Ruffle Feathers that I did with Joy McCullough for Simon and Schuster, I think it was. And that one was about this lady in the beginning of the century, the past century, who sort of was an activist to stop the use of feathers and birds for ornamental hats and fashion. And she sort of got together with a lot of other people, and they are the foundation with other people also for the Audubon Society in Boston, Massachusetts.
wow.
So that was historical, and it was a lot about the garments and the hats and the fashion, and was very interesting to do.
Yeah.
And
Great.
another one, and another one, the last one that I did is Aswaka Spanish with Gabriela Alderman for Charlesbridge. And that one is really, really important because it's about a kid who is bilingual, or sort of, and is trying to start to speak Spanish like his grandma. And it's very sweet and joyful and colorful, and it taps into the Latin American culture and I don't know, feel. It has a very distinctive vibe, and I love it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming since you're of Argentinian descent, it probably had a lot of personal connections too for you.
Yeah, and also the writer is half from Panama and then to the United States, and she also has a kid that speaks but struggles and to speak in Spanish. So it's very relatable. And I have in my family my sort of nephew from my cousin. She speaks in Spanish, and he's in the United States, and also he has this sort of duality.
Yeah.
That it's fun to watch them tackle these things, because the family is all mixed up, our family at least. So we speak in Spanish. His father is Portuguese. He's in America. So it's a whole salad.
Yeah. And I think I really hear this theme, even in some of the works that you've talked about, where there is this sense of explaining the world to children through the books, right? Or explaining sometimes even things that are happening in one's family about being multilingual, or finding a home in the library. So I want to talk about We're the Builders, and kind of what drew you to the text and the script in We're the Builders, and then we'll show. I want to do I see it behind you too. So maybe we'll do that. We'll do the reveal. So this is the cover reveal. I think it's kind of been out there already, but so excited about this book, and I think that the way that you drew these characters, these young people who are throughout this book, and their diversity and the vibrancy, the movement that this book has because of your illustrations, I think really lends itself to the script. So I love that we were able to collaborate. But tell me why you were drawn to this book to want to illustrate it.
Ooh, well, my agent showed me the script, and she told me, well, there's this project and they're asking for you. And I read the script, and I was like, wow, this is so different from everything I've done, because usually there is a story. So you sort of have the scenes in your mind. It's sort of easier. And this one was not about a story. There is like a line, a storytelling line, but there are not specific scenes. And some of the concepts are really abstract.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, this is like a challenge. And I can tap into that. So yeah, the challenge part was very important, because I think this is important to grow in my practice. And then I thought, this is the first book that I think has like a social message that I make. And I thought that it was important, especially I think at the time that we started, I was feeling like a little bit like stuck. with my
Yeah.
work, and the challenge and the idea that it was very different was like very inspiring for me. So I thought, yeah, this, I'm gonna take it. I have to do this.
Oh,
And
I'm
yeah,
so glad you accepted
yeah,
the challenge.
the wording was beautiful and the rhythm was like, it took you, and slowly reading it one time, the second time I was sort of starting to see how to piece it together, although it took me like a long time and various tries, but it was like very interesting to see how do we create this like community, and
Yes.
they're like they are different ideas and chores they choose, and I don't know, I loved it.
Yeah. Well, I also, I'm so glad you talked about it as a challenge because it was a challenge for me as well on multiple counts. This is my first children's picture book, first of all. But secondly, it is based on the social change ecosystem map that I developed, which, as you said, yeah, it's an abstract, especially for children to explain it.
Yeah,
It's not easy because it has these roles like experimenters, visionaries, disruptors. And some folks might have heard me say this, that the reason I even wrote it is because I was hearing from parents and teachers who were using it for really young children, the map. And so it felt like if they're using it, then there should be something that children are learning, right? And so I'll just show one page that I love, which is around weavers, right? And so the text is we stitch, we braid, we intertwine, common threads link hearts and minds. When people fight or disagree, find what connects you and me. And that's really the role of the weaver. And so I love how you drew this of people sitting in a circle who might have disagreements with each other, and how the person playing the role of the weaver is able to find the links together. So you took the abstract and you made it really come alive. And there's so much movement in this book. That's what I love. Like, the words are there, but then your illustrations give it this rhythm and this momentum. So curious to know like what the mediums were that you used, and in terms of doing this book, why you landed on those mediums, if you could talk about that too.
okay, so basically what I work with is watercolors because I like their vibrancy, and it lended to make it like the transparencies. How can I explain this? When we reach the Weavers page, I started thinking about these threads that you can see behind. They are like ribbons
Mm-hmm.
or braids, and I decided that this was going to be like something that tied the book together. So watercolors allowed me to sort of layer them,
Mm,
and even when you layer like the blue and the red, you have like purples, and it makes different colors. And I thought it was like representative of this ensemble of kids that are really a mix and match of different things and different cultures and religions and countries. And I thought, okay, watercolors will allow me to play a little bit more with the layers and the transparencies. And I also used colored pencils for the details, or to punch them up a little bit, some parts. And I think that the colors came out really
yeah.
vibrant, and I think it helps the sort of the, how to say, the energy that the kids and the people that are helping in the community have, or
Yeah.
what you would like to transmit to other people. That's how you feel when you do something for somebody else, or in, I think that's what I
Yeah.
wanted to communicate. I don't know if it's clear
Oh,
or
it's
not, but
totally clear. Totally clear, Romina. And I've had that. We have the samples of the book so we can look at it and see. And I know
Yeah,
that people will feel that way. We're not going to show any more pages because it's going to be a
no.
series. But
Top secret.
yeah, but I think that the layering, the colors that you used really bring out the diversity that I wanted in this book. I want kids to look at it and say, "Oh, I see myself," or "I could be a builder. I can be an experimenter too."
Yeah,
And it's not something that only like adults and grown-ups can do. And that action that you said, there's this feeling of action throughout the book, not just
yeah,
like learning, but doing. And I wanted to talk a little bit about like the creative and collaboration process. If you know, because people ask me this a lot, and I didn't even know this before I embarked on this. But so when you're writing a children's book or when you're working on it, the author and the illustrator actually have a firewall. They're not actually talking to each other. And so what we did was, and I thought you were so generous, Romina, and I wanted to say this directly to you too, because we would swap, you would send the samples, and then I would get them from our editor, and then I would write back with some of my thoughts. And you were so generous about really including so many of the ideas that I had. And I just am so grateful to you because I think that the book is the diversity, like you said, of the children. I remember we talked about a sick boy who's wearing a patka, and you rendered that so beautifully, and you included him, he's right here,
yeah,
in the book. And then Ramla, the main character, who's based on a friend of mine who runs a nonprofit for refugees in San Diego. You rendered her so beautifully. She's a Black Muslim girl in this book. And so just the collaboration process, what was it like for you as you were working on it, to also, include ideas that you were getting from the editor and myself?
I love that part on all my projects. The feedback from the editor and the art director and the author
Mhm.
are great because they take you out of your head. Because sometimes you're like with your drawings, and the focus for me is always like I want to make her look perfect. Like she has to be the perfect Rambla in my head, no? And the kids have to be like this and like that, and I have to have like this ensemble with which has to have different sizes and shapes. And
Right.
sometimes you lose perspective of what you're doing all the way, and the art director comes back and tells you like, hey, focus on this, focus on that, don't worry about that, we'll see that later. And it gives you like a new set of eyes on something that you've been sketching for days.
Right.
And it's great actually because, for example, I wouldn't have thought of including this kid
Yeah.
because I just thought we had a lot of different things, but I couldn't, in my mind I couldn't picture him. And they came back with the idea, and I started googling images, and I thought this looks amazing, I have to include this. He's like so much fun and colorful also. So yeah,
Yeah.
let's get him in. And
Yeah. And you
um,
were great about that. And I really
I have,
appreciate that because you just I it was a great collaborative experience, even though we weren't necessarily directly in touch with each other. And so and it sounds like you use that process throughout your projects, but I think it was really
yeah.
wonderful for me as
Yeah,
well.
it's fun because you learn also whilst doing the book. You learn. You have to do research about
Yeah.
different, and it expands your world of your worldview. Because where I live, for example, there are no kids with sick
Podcast. Yeah.
and FATCAs, and mostly I've seen girls with hijabs, but it's not the usual thing.
Yeah.
And I do have a boy. Well, I had because I don't live there anymore. I have a boy in a chair exactly like this one in my on my block.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm.
I knew how the chair was
Right.
and
Right.
how he
But
works
other
with the
times you're
chair.
doing research to figure it out, which is great.
Yeah,
And I do think people like kids will see themselves in this because it's not, different. races and faiths, but also different bodies, right?
Uh,
That is reflected in here too. So hopefully the children that read this will say, oh, like that looks like me or a friend or a family member. And so I'm going to ask you, what do you hope that young readers and their caregivers will get out of reading this book? Like what's your hope that what do you hope they will take away from it?
I hope they get inspired, first of all. And I don't know, I was trying to remember when I was a kid and I was overwhelmed by this, by trying to help or getting involved. Um, it was like giving the first step, very challenging for shy kids, it might be. And maybe their caregivers or parents don't push them to do it because okay, she's scared to go and do that, to give that jump. But I hope that it gives them both caregivers and kids the like a little push to try it at least, see if you like it. Maybe you can find a role that suits you, that you enjoy, or where you find other people that make you feel comfortable, something you're good at. I don't know. I
That's
think
perfect. Everything you said is what I hope too, Romina.
Yeah,
That's what I
I
hope
think
that,
there's a place for everybody here
yeah,
in this book.
yeah,
There's something that you're going to find that you can do, that you are good at, that you can give your time for. And yeah, I think
that's what I'm
most
hoping
people
for
will
too.
find. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's like I'm also hoping because I'm gonna have some supplemental materials, like activities or conversation starters. In fact, the book ends with a number of questions that the caregiver or the educator and a child can even talk about. So hopefully it's this, like you said, it's like an entry point, a starting point that young readers will have, and then they can maybe use it throughout their lives.
yeah.
They get older too. Okay, so we have just a little time left. I wanted you to tell us about your other projects that are coming up. What are you working on now?
Right now, I'm working on a book for a French Canadian publisher that it's called the L'Étoile Noël, that I think it's translated as the Christmas wish.
Ah,
And it's
Wish.
a Christmas story, yeah, like a traditional folk tale from Eastern Europe, but
Ah,
adapted a little bit to today's world. And I like it because it's fantasy, so it's completely different from everything I've done. And it's very artistic and magical. So it's entirely different, and it's given me like freedom to play with other stuff that I never get the chance, with things that I love, like the woods and fairy tales and trees and tiny insects and things like that. And it's really magical is the world. Yeah.
Lovely. You're definitely a storyteller and an experimenter. I can hear that and how you speak in terms of the work that you do. I love it. And where can people find out more about you? Can you share your website? And I think you're
My
also
web,
on Instagram.
See, I'm on Instagram. You can look me up as Romina Galotta. And I also have a website, rominagalotta.com, that where I have my portfolio, the books that I've done, and a little bit about me.
I will make sure that all of that is added into the notes so people can find you. And you're in Italy, I'm in the US. I wish that I'm hoping, I'm going to put it out there that we have a chance to be in person together, to read from this book and to show this book. So hopefully, who knows, right? What can
Yeah,
happen?
yeah, it can
Um,
happen.
yes, it can happen. It will happen. But again, let's show the book again. It's coming out September 2024, published by Simon and Schuster. You can pre-order it right now. Most importantly, I hope that it gets into children's library collections. So
Yeah,
if you're connected to a library in your area, please ask them to order the book so that children can have access to a free copy of this book. And again, it's called We Are the Builders, written by me, illustrated by the amazing Romina Galotta. So thank you, Romina. I so appreciate
Thank
the
you.
conversation with you, meeting you like this. So I'm gonna pause the video. Thank you everyone for watching. Please check out my Instagram at Deepa V. Iyer in order to get more information about this book, and head to www.socialchangemap.com to get information about the ecosystem framework at large. All right.